Right, here we go. Big Ten preview, the top 10 defensive linemen in the Big Ten heading into the 2023 season. Now, here's how we've been doing this in the past, guys. Either Chris or myself will lead this. We'll go 10 through 6 and then 5 through 1, and then the other one responds after we give 5 players in our list. And I'll say straight up right now, the experts that I've been reading are completely wrong. They're
I don't
completely
disagree.
wrong. I think they're taking into account things like recruiting rankings a little
Mhm.
bit too much. I also think they're taking into account kind of like expectations or maybe even statistics from last year.
Well, and a lot
I
of
think you got to
statistics
take
that were done in
all,
mop-up duty, Eric.
yeah, you got to take it all into account. Look at all of it. You also have to look at defensive scheme is important, I think, and then expectations, and then the level of play as far as who they are and what the expectations are for the season. So, that being said, let's dive into this tonight. And Chris, I will give you 10 through 6 first. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
And as we like to say, Aaron used to like to say on the show, we are uncultured swine here on the OHIO podcast. So do not hold me accountable for the terrible names, pronunciation of names here. Here we go. Number 10. And this guy's in a lot of top fives, and I don't understand why. Penn State's Adisa Isaac. 28 tackles, 4 sacks last year from the defensive end position. He is number 10 for me. Number 9, I think this is a guy who could be very high on this list by the time the season's over. That would be Captain Jack Sawyer from Ohio State. Last year's stats, okay? 24 tackles, 4.5 sacks. His sacks and his tackles are the same as Isaac, yet the experts have Isaac well ahead of Jack Sawyer. And they're practically the same. Number 8 from Rutgers, Aaron Lewis. 54 tackles, a sack and a half last year. Cleans up pretty good on the tackles, didn't do too well on the sacks there. That'll come up this year. Number 7, and limited playing time, mind you. Very limited playing time. Number 7, Michael Hull Jr. from Ohio State, defensive tackle. Last year, he had 19 tackles and 4.5 sacks. I think he only played in what, like 5 games, 6 games?
Yeah.
And half that time he didn't, was second
Yeah, he
string
was
and
on the
barely got
snap
in.
count.
I mean, he was, I think, probably played less than 100 snaps last year, and he had 19 tackles and 4.5 sacks, and he's healthy. I got him at number 7. Number 6, Joe Evans from Iowa, 40 tackles, 6.5 sacks last year. Again, 10 through 6. Adisa Isaac, Jack Sawyer, Aaron Lewis, Michael Hall Jr., and Joe Evans. Chris, where did I get it right? And where did I get it wrong?
I'll tell you what, Eric. I have exactly the same group that you did. The only thing is, where did you have Sawyer at?
I had Sawyer at number
You had him at 9,
9.
didn't you? I had him at 8.
Okay.
So other than that, we're pretty well in sync. I just had the 8 and 9 flopped.
Did you have Miller? You had Miller ahead of Sawyer then too. I'm sorry, not Miller. Michael Hall
Hall.
Jr.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I looked at his impact given the limited playing time and the injury plagued season. Eric, this is a guy who I really think could be the number one guy on this list at the end of the year. He is that dominant of a player, that disruptive when he's actually in the game.
If Ohio State's going to get to a national championship, they're going to need the defensive line to lead. I mean,
And and
you go back and look at the national championships with that Clemson one, and everybody likes to talk about sunshine at quarterback. You go back and look at those national championship teams
no,
from
those
Clemson,
were
it was their
defensive
defensive
monsters.
lines. They were dominant on the defensive line.
Yeah.
And I feel that if Ohio State's going to do the same, given the inexperience that we have up front offensively and at the quarterback position, I think the defense is going to have to lead that. And it's going to take the defensive line being dominant. And I think Michael Hull Jr. is going to be a huge part of that. Can he stay healthy and can he get a huge pass rush up the middle? We saw it in the spring game. Now, we've been dogging that offensive line. But on the flip side of that,
If this
maybe
defensive line is that good,
maybe
that
that
is scary,
defensive
Eric.
line is really that
If
good.
that defensive line is really that good, we'll have 6 guys on this list by the end of the year.
Oh man, because you know how Larry likes to rotate, so they're going to get plenty of playing time, man. All right, you ready for the top 5, Chris?
Let's talk about it.
All right, number 5, we do have to throw someone on this list from that team up north. Chris Jenkins, 54 tackles and 2 sacks last year for the Maize and Ugly. Number 4, Keith Randolph Jr., defensive lineman from Illinois, had 53 tackles, 4.5 sacks last year. Number 3, JT, and I always butcher his last name, and I'm not allowed to call him
Tui
JTT.
Maluau.
Thank you, Chris. JT Tuimulau. I still didn't
Tui
do it
Maluau.
right. Defensive lineman at Ohio State, 28 tackles, 3.5 sacks last year, and he had what's called what many people are calling the perfect game against Penn State, like pitching a perfect game. Deontay Craig is number 2 for me from Iowa,
Yeah.
31 tackles, 7.5 sacks last year. He was a sack monster. Lead is as far as defensive linemen are concerned, had the most sacks out of those who are coming back. And number 1, and I tell you what, this guy is something else
Yes.
to watch.
I know you're talking.
Just yeah, Jer'Zhan
Jer'Zhan
Newton
Newton.
from Illinois, 59 tackles, 5.5 sacks. Now, I'll be honest with you, I'm
But
not.
Eric, that doesn't tell it all. You did 14 tackles for loss, 11 hurries, 2 fumble recoveries. The guy's a beast.
He is a beast, and I'll tell you, I'm not huge on Illinois this year, but they have got a
Him and
really good
Randolph,
defensive line.
him and Randolph are going to be tough to stop. You're going to have to pick your poison there.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I think so. What again? Let me go over the top 5 there. Number 5, Chris Jenkins from Michigan. Number 4, Keith Randolph Jr., Illinois. Number 3, JTT, Ohio State. Number 2, Deontay Craig, Iowa. Number 1, Jer'Zhan Newton from Illinois. What did I get right or wrong, Chris?
Well, I got the kid from that team up north, the same as you do at number 5. I think with Mozzie Smith gone, he's going to have a huge season. I did have, and maybe there was a bit of a homer in me, but I did have JTT and Deonis Craig flipped.
Okay.
But
Why is
the more
that?
I think,
What's your reasoning behind
and
that?
honestly, I think about it more, and it was probably more of a homer factor than anything. He did have more tackles for loss. Now, granted, Deonis Craig definitely had more sacks, but you know what? JTT also had the 4 pass deflections, the 2 interceptions, a forced fumble, a fumble recovery. So, I mean, their stat lines were sacks went to Craig, tackles for loss went to JTT. I think that the other lines were pretty much um, kind of a give and take thing. They pretty much were a wash. Now, JTT did have the defensive touchdown as well. But I'm telling you, Eric, if Ohio State's defensive guys, and one of the reasons, and I've had several people I know probably want to know why JTT isn't number 1. And these are people who are living off that Penn State game. I'll tell you right now, JTT, Michael Hall Jr., and Jack Sawyer should all be in the top 5 if they could play with consistency.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That is what stops them from being, quite honestly, 3 of the top 4 players on this list is the consistency.
Let me throw this out at you, Chris. Is it conceivable, given the attention that JTT is going to garner this season, that on the other side of the defense, Jack
Sawyer has a
Sawyer
huge year.
has a
Yes.
better year statistically?
Oh, I think absolutely.
I do too. I
I mean, you
actually.
look at that, and you can make that argument there. You can make that argument in our wide receiver room because everybody's talking about the
Mm-hmm.
year that Harrison Jr. is going to have.
Mm-hmm.
Don't sleep on Igbuka or Fleming because Harrison's going to get so much attention. You know, I think that those are 2 position groups where that definitely could hold true. Um, and even sneak in possibly the cornerback room, just depending on how that plays out. So.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, I think you make very good and valid points there. So, all right. So there you have it, guys. That's our top 10 defensive linemen in the Big Ten heading into the season. Obviously, the predictions were never the same as the results by the end of the year. That's why they're predictions.
6, Eric, 6 by the end of the year, man.
6 Buckeyes. That might be a little bit of day drinking or daydreaming, one of the two, maybe combined. I don't
Maybe a
know.
little bit of both.
Maybe I don't know about that one, buddy. But hey,